In a shocking breach of national security, top Trump officials have inadvertently shared classified war plans with a journalist. Imagine receiving a text message containing sensitive military information about an impending strike. That's exactly what happened to Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, when he was mistakenly added to a Signal group chat with high-ranking Trump administration officials. The chat, dubbed the Houthi PC Small Group, included Vice President JD Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, among others. He say officials were discussing and coordinating plans for airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen, just hours before the operation was executed on March 15th. President Trump has downplayed the incident, calling it the only glitch in 2 months of his administration. However, this unprecedented leak has sparked outrage among Democratic lawmakers, who are demanding a full investigation into what they're calling a serious breach of national security. As the White House scrambles to contain the fallout, questions are swirling about the use of unsecured messaging apps for sensitive military communications. With tensions rising in Yemen and concerns about operational security at an all-time high, this accidental leak could have far-reaching consequences for U.S. foreign policy and military strategy. President Trump has just signed a controversial executive order that could reshape the landscape of American elections. Imagine being asked to prove your citizenship every time you want to cast a ballot. That's the reality millions of Americans could soon face as President Trump takes aim at what he calls election fraud with a sweeping new executive order signed just hours ago. This directive mandates that voters provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, such as a passport, to register for federal elections. But that's not all. The order also requires all ballots to be received by Election Day, potentially invalidating millions of mail-in votes across the country. President Trump, who has long claimed without evidence that widespread fraud cost him the 2020 election, says this move is essential to ensure free, fair, and honest elections. However, critics are already sounding the alarm, calling it an unprecedented federal overreach into state-run elections. The order goes even further, directing states to hand over their voter lists to the Department of Homeland Security and the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, for review. His has raised serious concerns about privacy and the potential for voter suppression. Prince Harry dramatically resigns from Centabale, the African AIDS charity he co-founded in memory of his late mother, Princess Diana. The Duke, alongside his co-founder, resigned after a series of dramatic resignations from key trustees. But what caused this behind-the-scenes turmoil? Sources close to the charity reveal a fierce dispute over leadership, with tensions running high as personalities clashed over the direction of the organization. As key figures in the charity walked away, Prince Harry and his partner made the bold decision to step down, leaving many to wonder what happens next for this high-profile charity. The question now remains, can the charity survive this internal storm? Or is this the end of a chapter for the Duke's philanthropic efforts? In a stunning reversal, NASA has quietly removed all references to landing the first woman and first person of color on the moon. This dramatic shift comes in the wake of President Trump's executive order to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) language from federal agencies. NASA's website, once proudly proclaiming these groundbreaking goals, now focuses solely on scientific and technological objectives. The Artemis 3 mission, originally slated to make history in 2025, has already faced delays. Now scheduled for mid-2027, it's not just the timeline that's changed, but potentially the very essence of the mission itself. NASA insists this is merely a linguistic update, claiming it won't affect crew selection or mission objectives. But critics argue this move could have far-reaching consequences, potentially deterring diverse talent from pursuing careers in space exploration. A Canadian boycott of American products is sending shockwaves through the US economy. Canadians are steering clear of American-made products and cancelling vacation plans to the US. This boycott, sparked by President Trump's tariffs and provocative comments about making Canada the 51st state, is already having a significant impact. The numbers are staggering. Even a 10% drop in Canadian visitors could result in a $2.1 billion loss in spending and 14,000 job cuts across the US, particularly affecting popular tourist destinations like Florida, California, Nevada, New York, and Texas. Canadian consumers are taking Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Buy Canadian message to heart. A recent poll revealed that 85% of Canadians intend to replace or have already replaced US products while shopping. As the trade war escalates, Both countries are feeling the pinch. The Canadian government has announced retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion worth of American products, with plans to expand this to cover another $125 billion in US goods. United Airlines' flight from Los Angeles to China was forced to make a dramatic U-turn after a pilot realized they had forgotten something very important. The pilot had forgotten his passport. United Flight 198, carrying 257 passengers, took off from LAX on Saturday, but was diverted to San Francisco just 2 hours into its journey. The airline confirmed that the absence of the pilot's passport necessitated the return, where a replacement crew took over to ensure passengers reached their destination that evening. Passengers received meal vouchers and compensation for the inconvenience, but many expressed frustration over the delay, which added 6 hours to their journey. A man who endured over 4 decades on death row has been awarded a record-breaking compensation. Iwao Hakamada, an 89-year-old former professional boxer, has been granted $1.4 million in damages by a Japanese court. This amounts to approximately $85 for each day he spent wrongfully imprisoned, most of it on death row. Hakamada was condemned to death in 1968 for the unaliving of 4 people, despite consistently maintaining his innocence. He was recognized as the world's longest-serving death row inmate until his release in 2014, when DNA evidence suggested that the clothes used to convict him had been planted. The Shizuoka District Court's decision to award this compensation marks the highest ever granted for a wrongful conviction in Japan. However, Hakamada's attorney, Hideo Ogawa, emphasized that no amount could truly make up for his client's suffering. Disney's live-action Snow White is facing a storm of controversy. Disney's reimagining of the classic fairy tale Snow White has become the target of intense backlash, with fans flooding review sites to express their displeasure. The film, which opened to a disappointing $87 million globally, is now grappling with a wave of negative reviews on platforms like Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. Critics and audiences alike have taken issue with the film's attempts to modernize the story. The removal of the 7 dwarfs, replaced by a diverse group of magical creatures, has particularly irked traditionalists. Meanwhile, the portrayal of Snow White as a more empowered and independent character has drawn both praise and criticism. Rachel Zegler, who stars as Snow White, has found herself at the center of the controversy. Her comments about updating the character for modern audiences have been met with mixed reactions, with some applauding her stance and others accusing her of disrespecting the original. As the debate rages on, questions are swirling about the future of Disney's live-action remakes and the challenges of adapting beloved classics for contemporary audiences. Will Snow White recover from this rocky start, or has the magic mirror cracked for good?